Good evening. Welcome to the April 27th meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. As is customary, I will read the governor's announcement, or governor's order into the record. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Westborough Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time. Technological needs. Members of the public wishing to participate from their remote location are encouraged to email their questions to planning@town.westborough.ma.us. Any person interested or wishing to participate in the public comment portions of this hearing from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device, please click this URL to join. https://zoom.us/ I can't even read that. Is that a J?
Yes, that's a J.
Okay, /93371039489458 $PWD equals AMRKN 2UXTIF
Family members who might be waiting for people or for patients themselves, patient staff, versus also wanting the staff working there to feel comfortable leaving the building.
Somebody shut their microphone off.
And all the great restaurants we have here in town.
Kristen, can you mute that? Okay, I believe I finished that link, and enter the meeting ID 933-710-9458 and passcode 181542 at the time noted. The meeting can be viewed on Verizon Channel 24 and Charter Channel 191 or live streamed online at westboroughtv.org. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So before we start, I'd like to remind everybody to keep their microphones muted at all times unless I acknowledge you, so that we don't have background noise and distractions. We have a pretty full agenda tonight. I was asked to read the agenda at the start of the meeting, so that would set forth expectations. So we have a Silver Hollow Estates lot release substitution. Then we'll take up a review and consideration of preliminary residential subdivision plan for Rugged Trails 228 Ruggles Street. And we'll continue the public hearing for the site plan review application at 4400 Computer Drive, and review and vote on approval of Teague and Bond Engineering peer review at 4400 Computer Drive. Kristen, can you scroll to the next page? Then we'll take up the review and approval of McMahon and Associates traffic peer review at 1400 West Park Drive. We'll have an endorsement of the definitive the endorsement of the definitive subdivision plan for Ridings 2 will be continued to another meeting. And then there'll be a master plan update with a vote to approve the amendment to the VHD master plan contract. So our first item is the lot release substitution of Silver Hollow Estates. Before we begin this, can I find out who's here for? I see Howard Goldman. Howard, are you speaking for the applicant on this, or is there anyone else?
Hi, Mr. Chairman, and nice to be part of the planning board tonight. This is Howard Goldman on behalf of Silver Hollow. I'm here, I guess, solo to represent the applicant tonight.
So Howard, I guess before we begin on the substitution issue, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we've had multiple complaints from abutters about contractors working outside the hours of operation that were agreed upon in the special permit. And that we've repeatedly asked you, your applicant, to address those. We had a complaint as recently as today. I'm pretty disappointed in that, and I would suggest to the board that we hold off discussion of this item until next week, at which point your applicant can come in and address the board and explain how they're going to prevent this from happening in the future.
Mr. Chairman,
So-
thank you. I certainly was made aware of this, and I was talking to the group today, and they take this issue very seriously. And I am surprised to hear there's a problem today. So what's happening is that on lots 1 and 2, there's a hard stop on exterior work at 4 o'clock. And what they've been doing is, I've been told, is they're stopping work before 4 inside and out on lots 1 and 2 where their homes are substantially built, and taking a picture and sending it to Jim. Jim, is that been happening over the past several days?
It has. However, I sent your applicant the dates and times of complaints that I had received. And in the last 4 days, Ken Chase has sent me time-stamped photos shortly after 4 p.m. of the site vacant. But today I received a call from an abutter, and I could hear the work. It was after 5 o'clock, it was actually 5:09 p.m. It was one of the masons was cutting stone and cutting the wall to install the fireplace. Now, Howard, I know this is not your area, but it certainly is Mr. Chase's area. I'd suggest that he post a sign on those lots for his contractors, because there may be one general and he doesn't tell his subs what the rules are. And so Ken has to go up there every day and tell them to leave. That's ridiculous. They all need to know what the rules are, because if Ken doesn't go, they don't leave.
So Howard, I just wanted to say that I asked Jim to talk to the chief of police about what the cost of a police detail would be. And if this problem continues, I'm going to recommend that the board reopen the hearing to find you in non-compliance and ask your applicant to fund a police detail from 4 to 5 each day, and if necessary in the mornings beforehand. Now, an hour police detail, to my understanding, is going to be over $300 a day until this problem is resolved to the satisfaction of the planning board. So with that being said, we'll move back to the agenda item. I don't know if anyone on the board has questions about these complaints or any further comments on this, but I think I've said my piece on it.
So I just want to say up front, I work with many developers. I'm on a board myself, and this should not be happening. And I was told that it was not. So this is a shock to me to hear today. A mason was out there at 5. I apologize. This should not be happening. I think your suggestion, Mr. Robbins, about posting the signs is very appropriate, and that will get done. It shouldn't be happening, and they, again, talking with the team today, they tell me that they were taking great efforts in with the picture. So despite the picture, that there was a complaint, and you heard when the phone call came in, Jim, that there was work being done.
It was the town meeting.
The applicant was outside. I'm sorry, the abutter was outside, and I could hear the work. So I don't know what else to say. And the other thing that's interesting is Ken had been sending me photos every day, and today I did not receive a photo.
Okay, that's crazy, because I definitely was on the phone with them today, late morning, and this was very important to them. So I apologize profusely. This should not be happening, and I'm certainly going to re-emphasize the importance to the neighbors, to the board, to the general community, that this should not be happening. I apologize.
Yeah, so I guess, Howard, again, I don't mean to put you on the spot on this because, it's really not why you came before the board tonight, but since you are here, I, I think it's more than just emphasizing the importance of, I think at this point, I'd like to have the applicant come before the board next week and with the plan on how this is going to be addressed. So again, I'd like to hear from the rest of the board comments before we move on with the agenda item. If anybody, I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
Hey, Mark, I would just echo your comments. Serious, got to be fixed. Or as you said, the remedy you suggested, I would agree with.
Anyone else?
I also agree.
All right. Again, I will move on to the actual agenda item, which is a lot release substitution. And Jim, do you want to introduce this or should we go straight to Howard?
So just briefly, the applicant had requested two things. First, that we rescind the lot releases that were granted the first week in March, and in its place substitute the same number of releases, which was 9, but there are 3 new lots, and then the other 6 had been previously released. So we would re-release those 6 and the additional 3, so they would end up with 9. They start with 9, they'd end up with 9. And I know I've written you a draft motion for that, but if you don't, you can save that if you're asking to wait till next week. You can come up with the same motion next week, but I turn it over to Howard to explain why they wanted 3 different lots.
I have one question. Could we put a picture of the subdivision up so that we will know which lots we're talking about?
Hazel, I hadn't prepared that. I apologize.
That's awesome.
I don't know that Kristen could find it. It just, as I said, I don't have it in front of me and I don't know which lots we're talking about.
While you talk about it, I can look in my files to see if I
Okay.
can find something.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kristen.
Okay, Howard, why don't you address the board and let,
Sure.
give us a.
Sure. So thank you, board, for allowing me to speak tonight. Jim is accurate to say that it's a request for a release of 9 lots. 9 lots were released in March by the board, and we're just substituting out 3. And the 3 lots that we're taking away are 4, 5, and 9, which are lots very accessible from the Mount Pleasant. And what we're doing is substituting for lots 10, 11, and 12, which are more interior. And the reason is that the buyers have expressed a purchase interest, have committed to buying these substituted lots, and that's why we're doing it this way. It wasn't to complicate the process. So lots 10, 11, and 12, we have buyers that are interested that are signing commitments for those lots. So that's why whereas the ones that we're removing, 4, 5, and 9, there are no buyers at this time. And so what it is, I apologize that we don't have a picture of the subdivision plan, but what it is these lots are more toward the central, and they're, if you're familiar with the terminology, that the streets are named after owls, and so that we're off of Blue Heron Court and further down on Barred Owl Drive, which is more into the guts of the subdivision. And actually, I have a picture. I'm sure it's meaningless to hold this up. It can't be seen. But that's the essence of it, is to substitute 3 lots because there's a buyer interest in those lots. And what we've done is submit to Jim ahead of time a request to rescind the partial lot release back in March, and then to redo it this time with the partial release of the covenants for those 9 lots, including 10, 11, and 12.
Any questions from the board?
Out of curiosity, are the lots you're talking about, are they being bought by one developer or are they individual homeowners?
So what's happening is that New Meadows is the developer, and so they've been commissioned to build these lots in question. So no, we're not selling to developers, we're selling to individual homeowners, people that have expressed an interest, and we're working with a marketing firm in town who brought some of these people to the market, and other people just finding different ways. But these are lot sales to individual homeowners.
All right, Kristen, I think you're bringing up the,
Oh, okay.
stuff. No, that doesn't have the lot numbers on it. No, it
Yeah,
does.
so they
It's
are
just
there,
so-
tough to see, but they are there. I'm not sure if this can be enlarged, and the action is in the middle with these 10, 11, 12.
Okay, so Road A on this subdivision plan, that's Barred Owl. Is that right? The longest cul-de-sac?
Yes, yes.
And Blue Heron is Road B, which is the one that goes out to Mount Pleasant. No, Blue Heron is Road C.
So Barred Owl is the one that goes all the way to Mount Pleasant, and you're right, that is one of the longest roads. And I think that it's over here, C. I think this is called Blue Heron on a more recent plan. And
so I see 11 and 12
Well,
there.
Howard, this is lot 12. Is this the one you said?
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing what you're pointing to.
Here's the, right by this in the center. You see the little pointer? What were the lots again that you're?
Yes, it's yeah, exactly. It's 10, 11, and 12. There's 12. And
Here's
11 is behind it.
yeah,
So it could all be
10,
on
11, and 12. 10, 11, and 12.
Okay.
Can you see my pointer? No.
No,
You're right.
Kristen
So
pointer.
this cul-de-sac is the Blue Heron Court, and 10, 11, and 12.
So
Do you
those
see
are
that,
the-
Hazel?
Hazel,
Hazel,
can you
you're
see that?
muted.
You're muted.
Yes, I can see them.
Okay.
And what are the other lots that we're releasing numbers are that have not changed?
So the other ones that are staying as part of the release are 7, 8. 7 and 8.
Okay, they must be down towards the beginning of Barred
Yes.
Owl.
Yes, actually, and more closer to Mount Pleasant.
Oh, right, 7, 8, okay,
21, 22,
yeah,
23, and 24.
got it.
So
All right, any other questions then? We'll give Howard a chance.
I have a question. So the complaints that are coming, I mean, all those lots are the ones that are being worked on at the moment?
yes,
They're
the
not,
lot-
it's just those lots?
that's my understanding. And again, we apologize for this. It should not be happening.
So Kristen, can you scroll the screen down? And it's lots 1 and 2, which are right by the entrance. Yes, pull the screen down. There you go.
Okay,
So you see lots 1 and 2?
Yep.
They're right at the entrance. Those are the 2 lots that are being worked on. And those are the 2 lots that have received complaints.
that's what I
So
figured.
were those released in a prior?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
and those are the sewer lots connected to the town
That's
sewer.
correct. So for the board's interest, the lots, there were 6 lots that were connected to town sewer. So they had 6 credits. And they asked for those 6 lots the first time around. And lots 1 and 2 are the first of those.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion on this? I would suggest that we, I would prefer to wait till next week to hear from the applicant about their, about the issues that we addressed at the outset. So, if somebody wants to make a motion on this, we can discuss a motion.
I move that we adjourn this matter to our next meeting on May, whatever it is.
So is it next Tuesday?
May 4th.
May
May
4th,
4th.
Tuesday?
May 4th.
Yeah, right. I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Okay, I will move to a roll call vote then. All those in favor, Hazel,
Yes,
Jim Ball,
Yes, Mark.
Tim Kaler,
Yes, Mark.
Peter Bouchard.
Yes.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0. Howard, if you could rejoin us next week, and please ask the applicant to attend the meeting.
Absolutely. I apologize again. I appreciate your consideration for this, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Mark,
Okay. Yes.
before we leave this issue, maybe I should have brought it up before. Can the applicant please provide in writing the measures that will be taken? Whether it's signage, posting a guard. I'd like to know what specifically they're going to do that can be objectively observed to address the problem at this point versus just, obviously the passing of communication to the contractors is not effective. So I want to know what measures will be taken in addition to whatever has been done. And what's in place
agree with
when we
that.
discuss this again.
Okay.
Thank you.
We will move on to the next agenda item. Howard, thanks for coming in.
Thank you all. Nice to see you. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a review and consideration of the preliminary residential subdivision plan for Rugged Trails, 228 Ruggles Street. Jim Robbins, I'll start with you to introduce this topic, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant for any presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you know, this plan has been in front of the board now for many months. One of the issues that we were having with the plan was the third lot. As you look at this plan, it's the lot on the top left of the cul-de-sac, making sure that the house could actually be placed in that lot in a way that would conform with the town's zoning requirements for lot width. Because that lot is an odd shape, it has a triangular shape with a tail that runs down towards the front on Ruggles Street. After redesigning the lot and repositioning the home on the lot, the zoning enforcement officer is now willing to say that they can achieve the minimum required lot width. So I'm going to turn the presentation over to Karen Keegan. I'm assuming Karen is here. I can't see everyone on the call to make a presentation where we left off.
Yep. Good evening. I'm Karen Keegan. I'm from Guaranteed Builders. I'm also on with Paul Hutnack, the engineer. Again, we have complied with the frontage, lot area, and lot width. And again, as Jim says, we got a letter from Fred Leonardo. I spoke with Board of Health many months ago. They're okay with the plan. We've done perk testing out there. They will verify our 2 septic systems at the time that we submit them. So they didn't have any issues with the groundwater or anything that would be submitted to them until it is submitted to them. Lot 2 will be connected to sewer. We're allowed 1 sewer connection. That's the lot that we chose to connect. All lots will have town water. We're looking for, I believe, 1 waiver. The waiver would be on the width of the pavement. The requirement is 26 feet. We're asking for 24. That roadway length is 545 feet. And the roadway right-of-way width is 50 feet. We have spoken with the Historical Commission. The building was okay with them to demolish the existing building that is on that site. But I think we were still, they wanted a couple of questions asked about the name. the owner of the property would like to call it Serrata Lane. And Serrata means knowledge. And it's also his mother's name. That was the reason why we were calling it. We will discuss that with historical as we enter into the definitive stage.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it if you do that. I mean, what we try to do is name roads, new roads in the town to give some historical perspective to the area in which it's being put in. So, you know, and it's something that we really like to do because we think it really helps us in the character of the town. So, you know, you'll need definitely to go to historical in order to get an approval for a road name. And I think I would suggest that you approach them and ask them for some suggestions. They can do some historical research on it and see what might be appropriate for that particular lot.
No problem, Hazel.
Okay.
We have no problem with doing that, but that's what he wanted. I mean, we can discuss it further from then with him. So at this point, I've kind of given you an overview of what has taken place with the plan itself, the new roadway configuration, the lot configuration. I'm going to turn it over to Paul, being the engineer, and he can discuss the engineering on it. Paul?
Hi, good evening. Kristen, is it possible for me to share my screen and then I could take you guys through the plan a little better? Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep, I just unshared it. So.
All right. You can see my screen now with the plan up on it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, as was just mentioned, we've reconfigured this a little bit more of a close-up view of the lots. We've reconfigured it. Essentially, part of what the calculation was to meet the lot width at the house and behind the house. So we've, as was just mentioned, we took care of that. Another thing of note on this plan before I move to the next one is that from the last meeting, we've added a small sidewalk easement that can be granted to the town. So if you do end up extending this sidewalk down Ruggles, then you can then connect through this property as well to the sidewalk that will be in our property. So here is the sort of like the site plan area. So as you can see, we have the roadway coming in. It does slope down similar to as it has previously, and it comes into a cul-de-sac. This is the grading that we're proposing, and we do have a plan profile as part of this preliminary plan as well, but obviously we would add every essential detail prior to a definitive. But we wanted to show a good amount of detail to show you what was going on. So we do have the house locations here. So what we're proposing, and if you recall it's been a little bit, but from our last conversations, we initially were trying to, if you remember, go for 24 feet of pavement, and we were asking for no sidewalk. So we had a pretty good conversation amongst ourselves here, and what I think we agreed upon was to go for 24 feet of pavement, but to provide a sidewalk. So that is actually what we show on this plan. So we have 24 feet of pavement, and then we do provide the sidewalk. So here, here's the paved area, obviously, and we're not asking for a waiver. We did discuss potentially a curb waiver, but we're not asking for that anymore. So we have the paved area, and then we have the sidewalk coming down the street on the one side. And what we also have added to the plan from some comments is a pull-off area here up the front with a proposed mailbox area that the sidewalk also goes to. So now we have an area where the mail can go, and it's established so that the postal service, obviously they would need to do their thing when it comes to time of construction, but we're proposing an area to be able to have them have a mailbox area. So yeah, so we had that. And then another thing that was discussed was to make sure we had some proposed areas for roof infiltration. So we're actually showing an area on each lot where we can have roof leaders tie into to get some roof infiltration, in storm events. And another thing that we wanted to try to do from the last meeting and some comments was to have some lighting near the driveways. And then also I did add one as well at the intersection, so that the intersection will be lit up. So those were the sort of the major comments that we've addressed in the plan. As you can see, to satisfy the lot width, we've essentially lengthened the road. It's 545.47 feet to the edge of the right of way. And what we had to do as part of that was slide this proposed house here on lot 2 is slid over. As you can see, it was sort of in the middle here before. It slid over, and we actually had to move the basin, which was kind of in this area here, down the hill some. So that allowed us to be able to get, really what happened, we were trying to get that frontage or that width requirement on these 2 lots. So to do that, we really had to get the roadway into the big lot more to be able to do that. So that's what we did to address that, was we slid this house over and we slid this basin down the street, down the hill some. And as part of this, with the grading to minimize slope going down towards the wetland, we're actually proposing some terraced retaining walls as well towards the end of the cul-de-sac, so that we don't have any more disturbed area than necessary. And we do show a guardrail here as well, because we have those retaining walls. We are on town water. As Karen mentioned, we do have 2 septics, and then this lot number 2 will have a force main essentially out to the street, and we'll connect into the sewer in the roadway. And that is the project.
Which lot is going on sewer,
Number 2,
which is,
right here. It's the back lot, essentially, like the furthest back.
so that's actually the furthest from the sewer connection, I would think.
It is. But that is kind of the hardest spot to try to put a septic as well, in terms of the resource area. So it ends up that's the one that, and in terms of sewer, they didn't necessarily, they basically just say that we have one connection because there is an existing connection. So it doesn't necessarily matter which lot to them.
Any other questions from the board? I just would encourage you to look at the open space subdivision as an option for this. I think you could make the cul-de-sac shorter and leave 2+ acres of open space that would abut the open space that I believe is it Valley View Estates open space. I don't know if that's the right name. Like Long Drive and so on is down there, and there's I believe Westborough Community Land Trust owns a parcel immediately abutting this lot with a small pond on it.
Mark, you're sort of muffled.
Sorry, let me see if I can adjust my microphone.
Mark, we had tried to go that route a year or so ago. The homeowner did not want the lots to be small, that he wanted the larger lots. He wanted to be able to at least, go into the back of those lots, because when we had gone to the open space, they were going to make us put some sort of a barrier so that you couldn't enter behind the lots on the open space. And the homeowner did not like that at all. He wanted to be able to at least walk out there or whatever he could do out there. And he was not for the open space plan,
Okay.
even though he had presented it at one time.
Aaron, who is the homeowner? Is the homeowner the owner of the property, or is
Yeah.
it a butter?
Oh, he is the homeowner. His name is Sundar Guru, and we had come to you with the open space. We had gone to conservation with the open space, and they were, of course, on board. And the homeowner decided that, once he knew he could not use the back lot, he was not happy with that. So
What's the size of the overall parcel, Karen?
5 acres.
So
Yeah.
our regulations say, just for the board's knowledge, our regulations say that if it's under 10 acres, it's the applicant's choice.
Right.
Right. Okay. Well, I would prefer to see it as an open space, but obviously that's not an option in this one. All right. Any other questions from the board? Jim, you need us to vote
No,
on this?
I have a couple comments before you move on. To the engineer, the regulations do require individual lamp posts at the end of each driveway. So you have 3 driveways, you'll have 3 lamp posts. Make sure that you take a look at the regulations so that you understand what that means. The intersection does require a street light, which you're proposing. Thank you for that. There may be a utility pole somewhere near that intersection that would be applicable for adding a street light. However, you have to work with National Grid on that because they do own the utility poles. If not, you'll have to find a way to provide a street light at the end of that intersection. I think you'll be fine, but you need to work on that now.
Okay.
I also want to be sure that your reduced width of roadway will accommodate our emergency vehicles, particularly our fire trucks. So the turning radius of your reduced cul-de-sac now, the paved area, it needs to be able to accommodate the largest fire truck and the swept path for that. And that's something you'll need to work on during the definitive plan. The request for a reduced width of the road, I don't know if that has anything to do with your front yard setback and determining lot width. If it does, we need to know that because there needs to be justification for reducing the width of the road. The regulations say that it's the planning board's call. I appreciate the request for the waiver, but you need to justify it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can, obviously we'll do that in writing, but just as a brief sort of summary of it, so the 24 feet of pavement would not, we're not asking for anything from the right of way. So the right of way would be what the, that whole lot width thing would have to do with. So we're not asking for anything to do with the right of way.
Okay.
It's essentially because it's 3 lots and to limit impervious area, really. I mean, there's 3 houses. So when we have 24 feet of pavement and 5 feet of sidewalk, so that's a fairly significant amount of impervious area for 3 houses. So we're just trying to limit it as much as we can. And yes, I did add a note. I think it's on, I think I'm still sharing, on number 3, plan 3, that a full fire truck turning analysis will be provided as part of the definitive subdivision. So we do have that noted as well, so for you to reference if you want to, or you can just condition it, or however you want to go about that. But yeah, we're certainly aware of that, and we will, like I say, we will, submit a formal waiver request with that reasoning.
That would be great. And please note the section that you're requesting the waiver.
Okay.
And also, Karen, during the initial proposal, there were a couple requests for waivers that now seem to have changed. So I'm going to disregard that and have you submit this as your new request.
Okay.
And we can talk more about it at the tail end of this week. Later this week, we can talk about this so that we can make progress for our next meeting.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Jim, thanks for adding to that. I'm going to just go back to the board now that you brought up some other issues and see if anyone else had questions about that or anything else. I think we're all set. So you need us to motion to approve the preliminary plan?
I would just ask that you, someone make a motion to continue this to our next meeting. They've already given us
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue the discussion of the 228 Ruggles preliminary subdivision plan to our next meeting on May 4th at 6:30.
Second.
That, Mark.
I heard Hazel first, so Hazel has a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, will do a roll call. Hazel?
Yes.
Jim Ball?
Yes.
Tim Kaler?
Yes.
Peter Bouchard?
I don't think I can vote on this.
No, I think you can. It's not a public hearing.
All right, perfect. So, yes.
Jim, am I right on that? I don't want to just speak out of turn, but I think we can vote on this.
Peter, so I'd rather have you err on the side of caution with this one. You don't need 5 votes. Peter has missed more than one meeting on this project. And even though it's not a special permit or a definitive plan with a public hearing, I wouldn't want anyone to challenge this since he's a new board member. So if he would abstain, that would help.
Sounds good, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Peter, how do you're going to abstain now?
I'm going to abstain from voting.
Words in your mouth. So, all right, and I will vote yes as well. So that's 4-0 with 1 abstention.
If I might ask, I know that you voted, and that's I understand. What would we accomplish at another discussion of the preliminary subdivision? I feel like we just need to get the waiver request together, I guess. Are we trying to do that now before we move on to definitive, or why would we, do it? I'm happy to come back if you want me to. I just want to know that I get you what you need.
I think Jim spelled it out that the board would need to grant that waiver, and he asked you to present the rationale. And I realize you discussed it briefly today. I think that's the rationale for it. Jim, do you want to address that?
So Paul, Karen knows how to write the waiver. She wrote the waiver request the initial time. Basically, all you do is you say, I request a waiver from section 1, subsection A, regarding the width of subdivision roadways to allow the road to be 24 feet in width with sidewalks at 5 feet, because the regulations say something else. That's all.
No, I understand the waiver request. I just wanted to make sure that that's what you needed, and that's why we were continuing. So I get that to you, or we get that to you.
Well, you're also continuing because you need to get the board to vote yes on your plan. And this is information that
That's good. I like that too. Yeah.
Well, we're hearing this information for the first time tonight, and I don't have complete information to write an approval.
Okay.
So when I get that, that's why I said I'll work with Karen this week.
Sounds great. No, thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure I understood what we needed to get you. So if I need to work on something, that's all.
Sure. We'll get it worked out. No problem.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right.
Can you
So-
stop sharing, Paul?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
All right, next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for the site plan review application for 4400 Computer Drive. Jim, I'm going to turn this over to you as well to summarize where we're at, and then we'll have the applicant address the board.
Thank you. So I see Bob Buckley representing Atlantic Management is on the call, as well as representatives from Atlantic Management and the owners Caruth Capital. As you know, the last meeting was our first public hearing on this project, and we discussed everything from the site design to the impact to potentially to abutters, to the intended use and operation of the site. At that meeting, we had a list of multiple questions that I typed up after the meeting and sent to the applicant the next day, requested them to come prepared this evening to address those. The board received a letter from Attorney Buckley yesterday to address those. I haven't had time to review them with the applicant, so I would like to ask the applicant if they would present those answers for the first time this evening, and then we'll have an opportunity to react to those, and we can continue to work on them after this evening.
Okay, so Bob, are you going to speak to the applicant on
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will speak. And And could I arrange for John Perry to be able to share his screen?
Yep, he should be able to share when he's ready.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As Jim outlined, that is correct. I think we're being true to form. In the beginning, we said we wanted to listen to the concerns. We would take those concerns and respond. I've also, through my staff with Christine Hung, who is on here this evening, have had discussions with Jim and the staff concerning a peer review. We know that that is going to be done on the application, and we certainly welcome that opportunity. That being said, we wanted to provide written response to all of the concerns that were raised at the last meeting, and for the audience and the public, we wanted to have an opportunity to walk the public through our responses in a brief presentation this evening. The presentation will follow the letter in terms of topics. So with that, we'll go to the first topic, which there were concerns or questions concerning the fiscal impacts of the project. And as we articulated at the meeting, there'll be substantial benefits to the town of Westborough, including a commitment that all the vans and vehicles would be registered with Westborough, which creates a recurring annual motor vehicle excise tax for the town. Because we are upgrading the building or the site, the value thereof will be increased, and that will translate into increased property tax revenue as well as personal property tax revenue. There'll be a one-time building permit fee of a substantial amount. I don't know that amount yet because that's based on the cost of construction. And no state or local funding assistance is being sought for this project. Next slide, please. We spent a lot of time at the last meeting discussing lighting, and I think we've been very careful when we design the site to make sure that there'd be no migration of lighting from a foot candle standpoint off of the site. But we've gone beyond that, and we've actually limited the line to the wetlands line, which is substantially distant from the property lines of abutting residential properties. The light pole height will be limited to 25 feet. And as I said, there'll be no foot candle swivel beyond the wetlands delineation line. And we have some graphic representation of that. This shows on the right is the lighting. The black arrow is no light spillover, and the hatched line going vertically is the control line. And you can see that that's quite a distance from the residential district. So that we carry that around the site just to orient the board and the public. Where you see that lighting sign, that's the rear parking lot where NFI conducts its operations. And at the post-construction or post-development phase of the project, there will be no light migration beyond that point. Again, a substantial distance from the residential properties that abut the property, abut the project, I'm sorry. There were some concerns about idling of vehicles and sound attenuation. Under the Mass DEP guidelines, as we quote there is a regulation that there'll be no idling in violation of that regulation. And certainly that is a requirement that we will adhere to. Moreover, when vehicles or trucks are unloading at the loading docks, it is policy that the engines are shut off and there's no light emanating from the headlights. The new truck parking and loading docks will be over. It's cut off by the picture here. I can't see. 950 feet from the nearest house. Nearly twice the distance that exists today from the NFI operations. We are also going to maintain the 300 to 350 natural forest buffer. We are reducing the tractor trailers from the current operation, which is roughly 260 trips over a 24-hour period today from NFI to 32 per day. We are also exploring and will be updating the plans to provide sound absorbing and light blocking walls at truck parking and loading docks. So that will create an artificial buffer in addition to the natural buffer. Show the next slide, please. This is an example of the sound walls that will be placed adjacent to the loading docks to block both sound as well as light from the vehicles while they're located at the loading docks. Again, they'll be of sufficient height and sound attenuation quality to address the concern that was raised during the last hearing. Traffic, there will be significantly less traffic than existing in the historic use. One of the benefits of this program is that we have the flexibility to control the access and egress and ingress from the site. Our vans depart off-peak times and return at off-peak times. And we have also agreed that if we are wrong, there's a feedback loop that the town will be able to look to verify what we are very confident of today, that there will be no need for adjustment, but the town will have the mechanism to make any post-operational adjustments if so necessary. We would strongly suggest that that would probably be roughly 18 months after operations have been commenced, so that the site can settle down and patterns can be addressed and identified, but we would agree to do that as a part of the project. One of the major benefits of the program is that the existing NFI trucking terminal site there will be eliminated. Today it is 24 hours per day, 260 trucks coming and going from the site, loading and unloading or dropping their freight at that location. As you can see, we're going to, that lot today is 570 feet from the nearest residential property. Under the proposed project, that area will be turned into a parking lot for vans. So once a van comes there, it will not be moving around or loading or unloading in that area, but will be stabilized and parked there until it is utilized up at the facility. And there is a distance from the loading to the residential structure post-development of 950 feet. So roughly 400 feet additional natural, and as we indicated earlier, there'll be artificial or structures put up to further mitigate any sound or light problems. Next slide. With respect to some of the intersections that were raised, in particular those coming on and off of Route 9, we've prepared this graphically that shows that the morning and evening traffic coming westbound off of Route 9 will be reduced by about 494 vehicles during the peak hour. And in the morning, on the other side going eastbound, you will see that there's a reduction of 237 vehicles morning and evening, for a substantial reduction in the impact on those intersections. Again, we recognize that this data is going to be reviewed by a peer review consultant for verification. This is a graph that shows from a presentation standpoint the difference in impacts from traffic going inbound, and then there'll be a subsequent graph showing outbound traffic. The gray being the existing traffic, and the yellow being proposed. You can see there's a substantial reduction in traffic impacts, order of magnitude of fourfold, I'm sorry. Next slide. Same outbound. That's coming in the evening. Today, there's 331 vehicles. The program will reduce that to 45 approximately. And this is a total inbound and outbound, and you can see there's a substantial reduction. This is a very interesting chart. It's not an EKG. The yellow is the traditional peak hour traffic that one would experience if this were a office park, for example. The purple is what we will be impacting those intersections on, and you can see that the peak in our traffic is outside of the peak hour of traditional office. So we're complementary in terms of managing traffic in the area by virtue of the fact that we have the flexibility to alter our traffic patterns from the site. It's characterized as an off-peak operation. There was some questions that were raised about the dumpster. The dumpster is currently located 1,000 plus or minus feet from the nearest house. We are looking at whether we can make further adjustments to that, but assuming we can't, they will be screened and located behind sound absorbing walls, and they will only be emptied on weekdays and only during normal business hours. And we would have a condition and a permit to that effect. There was some question about relocation of the parking fields. Given the site grades and the topography of the site, it's really not feasible to reconfigure the layout. Frankly, in the discussions we've had amongst the team, from a location and design standpoint, the current site is the ideal template for this type of facility. And to the extent that we were to make changes, it would destroy that operational efficiencies. And again, we are mitigating any potential impacts by placing sound absorbing and light blocking walls at strategic points, in particular the loading docks. In other locations, we're actually looking at natural berms to mitigate sound and light, but we will refine that as we go forward. Next slide. There was a question about public infrastructure. So we have agreed that we would be willing to make a financial contribution to an area-wide infrastructure study. And we feel that that is a critical component of the project at this time. Without commenting on the political realities, we're all aware that at the state, federal level, there's likely to be a major push over the next year to 18 months for infrastructure funding and initiatives. We think it's important from the town's perspective to be in a position to be first in line, for lack of a better term. And in order to do that, you have to understand what your needs are and how quickly you can put together the applications that will be required to obtain a fair share of that funding. So we've agreed with the discussions with Jim and the staff, as well as the board, to support grant applications and to provide the background data to support those applications. And we'll work on a condition, assuming that this is ultimately approved, to provide the timing and mechanism for that collaboration. Next slide, please. This is a very important slide. The current parking spaces on the site of approximately 2,800. We're reducing those down to 1,300, which is approximately a 54% reduction. There is a slight increase in impervious, but that relates and is attributable to the need for site circulation in a safe and convenient manner. Another major factor that has been focused on both at the Conservation Commission as well as this board, there is no increase in peak stormwater management. There is no increase in peak rate of runoff or volume of runoff. We are upgrading all of the drainage structures on the site so that they will meet or exceed current DEP stormwater management standards, as well as town of Westborough. There was concern about snow melt. All snow melt will be all snow piling and storage will be located in areas that, as it melts, it will be treated and routed through a stormwater management system. So there'll be no discharge of any melting snow into the adjacent resource areas without first being treated. And as I said, this design meets or exceeds all Westborough and Mass DEP requirements. Again, this will all be verified by your consultant. As to walking trails, we've looked at that, and I think our conclusion is the wetlands are unsuitable. There's unsuitable terrain and constraints. One of our concerns is privacy and parking issues with neighbors, that people be meandering through the buffer area. But we are agreeable to looking at alternative public amenities as this process proceeds. The potential, this is a slide that I'll explain in more detail. Under existing permits, both under state, the NEPA process, et cetera, this area could accommodate approximately 1 million square feet of development. What we're proposing is 221,000 plus 256 feet of development for a difference of potential as of right development of about 778,000 square feet, substantial reduction. The building height under existing zoning is 60 feet. We're proposing 45 feet, again, below what is permitted by 15 feet. That's hypothetical, what you could do if you wanted to do it. What do we have today? Existing, we have a 685,000 square foot building. We're proposing a 221,000 square foot building for a difference of 463,000 square feet. So we're providing a major reduction in impact on the site, which I would believe would be of substantial interest to abutting property owners. There was considerable discussion about sustainability. As part of the development, the electric fleet charging infrastructure for the entire site will be installed. If you've watched the media, you know that the applicant has a program in place to move over the next decades into a net zero type of an approach, which is focused on electric vehicles, as well as the rooftops will be solar ready. Through the stormwater management system, we've implemented and focused on a lot of what is called low impact development design standards to treat stormwater in an efficient and environmentally sensitive manner. And we will significantly enhance the landscaping on the site. And again, focusing in that effort with respect to water tolerant plantings, et cetera. So the actual site itself, not the buffer areas, which are going to remain natural, but the site landscaping will be significantly enhanced. And we hope to do that with due deference to sustainable practices. Next slide. Thank you. I would welcome any questions. Again, recognizing that the letter was delivered to you, I believe, yesterday, but we wanted an opportunity to at least speak to the public if they're watching, as well as the board who may not have a chance to review this letter, so that we could summarize and reiterate that we do listen and we do try to respond as quickly as we can. We've spent a lot of time over the last few weeks looking at these issues, studying them, and hopefully have presented this evening a responsive answer to your questions. And with that, we'd welcome any questions that you may have.
So for those of you watching in attendance, typically we would go through the board for questions first, and then get questions from any town departments. And then, because this is a public hearing, everyone will have a chance to ask questions or make comments as needed. But I would ask you to use the raise hand feature on the Zoom meeting link, which is down under, you click on the participants tab. You should get a list of participants on the right, and at the bottom is raise hand, so that we can have an orderly meeting. And Peter, I see your hand is up. All right, so do you want to start with questions from the board?
Yeah,
Or is
thank
that-
you. Yeah, thank you, Mark. First of all, Robert, great information. I led off the meeting last time with the question of being able to move the offloading the trucks to the other side of the building. I know John mentioned there was it was because of the landscape.
The topography, yeah.
Yeah, so is that the only reason? Is there, and how costly would that to make that change? Because I know you're putting in, you're putting all these barriers in, and you're trying to come up with great solutions to, aid those residents on Smith. But if the trucks were being unloaded on the other side, I think that would probably prevent a lot of the issues that we would have.
Well, I'm not the engineer, but I will say that the site, we spent a lot of time reviewing the comment and actually seriously looking at the question. We did not dismiss it, obviously, out of hand. And I think that the feeling was that the efficiency of the operation, the ability to mitigate the impacts, and as I said during the presentation, in many respects, the layout of this site is ideal for the building as laid out from an efficiency and template for the proposed operation. But I don't know if John wants to add anything to that, but we
Yeah,
did
if I may, one of the major things we looked at too was, site circulation and just kind of safety of, cars and vans moving around that site. And what the tenant really focuses on is safety of drivers and then pedestrians kind of walking around. And the way we have the site laid out, I can throw that up on my screen too so everyone can see that, is we really try to keep the employee parking close to the entrance so that they can just come in, park, get in the building, and they don't have to worry about kind of crisscrossing with van and truck traffic. So that was a major consideration. And again, the sloping here, we can slope the parking lot at a 4.5, 5% in the front. But we really can't slope, the truck parking to that same grade. So it just, from that aspect, doesn't work very well.
All right, thank you.
But Mr. Chairman, I would like to reiterate that when we show the details on the plans, the concerns, when you add the natural buffer that exists and is going to be enhanced, and the structures that are going to be put in place, that I think both the board and the residents will be satisfied that any potential impacts will be satisfactorily mitigated. We are focused on it.
Bob, this is Doug Landry from Langen. If I could add on,
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, again, Doug Landry with Langen, part of the design team here. I just wanted to reinforce a few things that John Perry had just mentioned with the site plan. It's good we have this, looking at this now here. The way that this facility is laid out is a prototype of a tenant. And when we look at these across the country, we don't often find sites that are let's call them 100% prototype sites. And this is one that fits the prototype almost to a T in terms of how it's laid out. This is a very efficient way to lay these buildings out. And as John pointed out, all the elements of a prototype like this are thought through in terms of circulation, trying to separate trucks and pedestrians, cars and trucks. There's also a security element to this as well. In the front of the building, we don't really show the interior of the building here, but towards the front end of that building are what we call the front of house operations, offices, employee break rooms, things like that offer sort of eyes on the street, so to speak. If you flip that around and we have the loading docks facing Route 9, facing Computer Drive, not exactly aesthetically pleasing, but there's also a vulnerability to some degree in terms of security and access to the building, which we want to avoid here. So, I do want to just reinforce again that the prototype for this type of facility fits almost to a T on this site. It's totally contained. All the parking is contained. There are no off-site parking lots required for this. It's got great access to and from Route 9 and 495. It's kind of an ideal site for an ideal location. And, the way that these are thought through at a high level here, it fits exactly, for the way it's designed. The site is integral to how the building operates. The building is integral to how the site is laid out. And that's what you see depicted here. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, thank you. No, I agree. It's an ideal location, and that's kind of why I was seeing what were our possibilities to flip it. And I do understand that the employee parking and that would cause safety issues. But no, I appreciate your feedback, and I'll think about it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board? Jim Ball, anything? Hazel?
Yeah.
Mark, go ahead, Hazel.
No, you can go.
I would comment that my preference is not to have the loading docks and the trucks at the front side of the property from an appearance, and I agree with the safety and flow. So my feeling is that moving it back away from that lower lot with the mitigation, I think that mitigation is very important. Based on what we heard from the abutters last time, but I think that is well done. So I from a safety standpoint and a flow standpoint, I like this setup. That was my only comment.
Hazel, you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'd gone up and looked at the site and gone up and looked from the residential viewpoint, and I think the mitigation efforts are going to make a huge difference to the people that are living back to the commercial properties there. Certainly is going to definitely improve what they're living with now. And I, quite frankly, am impressed with the mitigation efforts which the applicant has put forth at this point, because I think it's going to make a huge difference to the neighborhood. And I think they all make sense, and I understand perfectly about the parking and the safety, and I think just the flow of traffic, the way it's set up. I mean, you have to look at it on how this business is going to run, and the easiest flow of traffic is going to make the less amount of impact upon the neighborhood, because you're not going to have trucks stopping and starting or parking and sitting in various places. So I really thank the applicant for the time and effort they've put in to try to make this compatible with the neighborhood.
So Chairman, can I make a comment on that? Just by eliminating the NFI operations from a 24-hour operational standpoint and deactivating that quadrant during the evening or overnight hours, coupled with essentially enclosing the loading docks between sound attenuation barriers and light attenuation barriers, is going to make a dramatic, we feel it's going to make a dramatic difference to the operations. I mean, earlier in the presentation, we showed graphically today that NFI operation is 570 feet from the nearest residential structure. The trucking operation now is going to be over 900 feet. That alone is a significant impact, and there'll be no activity there during the night. Once the vans are put in place, they stay there until they're utilized the next day.
Tim Kaler, did you have any comments?
I did. I actually had a question. First up, appreciated what the applicant highlighted in terms of sustainability, and know that Amazon has a big push to electrify the delivery vehicles and fleet over a number of years. And I believe there was highlight of the charge station architecture that's planned for the site. My question went to the point that was listed that, you know, the roof is solar ready, which makes me believe that there's not an intent at this point to install solar panels on delivery. Is that correct?
That's correct. Bob, unless you want to answer this, but that's the intent is to, you know, when this building is built initially, solar panels won't be on it, but it has been designed structurally for solar panels because that is, you know, the way this tenant is moving.
Okay. And so my question is, how do you have an energy profile for the building? For example, how will space heat, cooling, and hot water be provided? What systems are going to be provided? What's the energy source and efficiency sort of profile of those systems?
The majority is by natural gas, right? We're going to be hooked up to natural gas here.
Okay.
I can't speak to the specific, you know, efficiencies of those systems. We can get answers on that.
Okay. Well, it sounded one of the other speakers on your behalf mentioned that this was a prototype building for Amazon. So I was curious, there must be some energy profile and what the belief is that they'll do over time, the life cycle of the building.
Yeah, Tim, I think it was a prototype site. In other words, the physical and existing characteristics of the site were the prototype, not the actual building. That's the way I understood it, but maybe
Yeah, if someone could clarify. I would assume that there's an ideal layout.
That is correct.
That was my inference. That's the inference I was drawing.
Yeah, it lays out from an operational standpoint, from site circulation, but that's a legitimate question. We'll get some information back to you on that.
Yeah, it's all in a positive direction. I just applaud what Amazon is doing nationally, and I'm curious what will be done locally over the life cycle of the envelope, given the direction that you're heading. So that's great. Thank you.
So I had a couple of questions. Could you go back to the traffic, the peak traffic chart or graph, I guess it was? Yeah, this one. No, yeah, I can't read those hours, but you've got a, you know, the morning commute in yellow and the peak hours in purple for the new project, but you've got a significant spike. It looks like it's between 1 and 3 in the morning. Is that all truck traffic?
No. So this is employee traffic, not truck traffic. This is a shift change between over the night.
That's in the morning, John. Yeah. Let me, if I could.
I'm sorry. Backing it up here. Yeah.
Let me try to explain this. And John, if you can back up to slide 9, I think it is, just to give you some context, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
There you go. So when we talk about my camera on, excuse me. When we talk about traffic and trip generation for this facility, and you saw this the slide where you showed the existing versus the proposed from a trip generation perspective. You know, let's keep in mind that what we're talking about is a 685,000 square foot building today, which is half occupied. So when we say existing, we mean 50% occupancy of that building, just to put that in terms of comparison. ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, is the database that we use to determine trip generation for particular land uses. And this one fits into the high cube warehouse category. And so we come up with, you know, peak hour, morning and peak hour timeframes and daily timeframes, and come up with the traffic that's generated by the ITE code. But the second bullet on this slide here is very important to understand, because facilities like this are really highly programmed by the tenant, literally down to the half-hour increment. Who is coming and going? What kind of car is coming and going, including employees who are coming from their homes to the workplace. number of vans, number of truck deliveries, and when they are all staged to come and go from this site. It's a very highly orchestrated operation. So if you go back to that slide with what Bob called the EKG. So here, this is a representation of how the facility will operate. So the morning and evening commutes, actually, those are expanded commuting hours. On the left, the morning commute is really 7 to 9 a.m. when you can picture, people are leaving their houses, they're going and commuting into Boston, wherever. That's the morning commute peak. And then when that gets calmed down, the operations of the facility are deliberately planned to crank up so that we avoid the peak hours. So that spike you see, that first spike after the morning commute, is the delivery vans have been loaded overnight. They're waiting to leave the site. They're waiting for the peak hour to be over with on Route 9 or adjacent roadways. And then the vans start to leave the site. And they do that for a couple of reasons. One is they don't want to be part of the traffic mix on Route 9 or anywhere else during the peak hour, just to exacerbate traffic. And then it's also an efficiency point of view for their operations. They don't want to be in traffic because they need to get their products out in about an 8 to 10 hour time frame. So if you look at the spike, which is later than the evening commute now, so that evening commute is 4 to 6 p.m. we've shown here. Okay, so the vans are out, they're making their deliveries throughout the day, and now they're returning. And that spike you see after the evening commute is that, again, 2-3 hour time period between about 7 to 9 o'clock in the evening, where the vans are coming back now empty. They're getting back in their queue to be loaded overnight. That spike you see on the far left, which you pointed out, are shift changes, employees coming in to load the vans during the night hours and get the van fleet ready for that first pulse out at around 9:50 to 10:50 a.m. So that's what that shows. So this is this trip generation, and then there's the how those trips are actually planned. In a very highly organized way throughout the day. And this is kind of a visual representation of how that would work and how that would play out.
That spike on the far left is a shift change, represents a shift change between when workers are coming in their own vehicle.
1 to 3 in the morning.
Yes, I'm looking at this. Yes, that's correct. I'm looking at another piece of that's correct. Those are associates coming in between 1:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. I think that's what that shows. So that's correct. Those are employees on the shift change.
Mr. Chairman,
so if we could go back to the site plan, and you could show me where those employees are parking.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Those employees park in the front parking here.
Okay.
That ties in, Mr. Chairman, to what we were talking about earlier, that the impacts there will certainly not be visible or impact the abutters because they'll be front of the building operations.
Okay, so I guess that answers one of my questions. You also have, round the clock, I believe you had said at the last meeting that most of the trucks will be coming in, around the clock during the day. And I just would like to know the route of those trucks as they come in. Are they all taking the same entrance point and heading back to the loading docks and unloading?
Yep.
The
tractor trailers come in between 10 at night and 8 in the morning. And they're all going to come in here where they come in now, with the current, trucking operations come in through 2400 Computer Drive. They'll come through here and they'll come right into the loading dock area here.
Okay. So I guess one of the points I'd like to make on that is, and I'll be interested to see the location of your sound mitigation barriers and light mitigation barriers, but as those trucks come down that long stretch at the southern portion of the site and approach that corner, I would certainly like to see some mitigation there at that corner, so that the headlights and sound from those trucks approaching the corner does not affect the residential neighborhood. So again, I think there's other spots on the site that need to be addressed, but I'd and that's one of the points I'd like to make. The last thing I had was the trail question, and I think on this map you can see the existing service road at the very bottom. It comes in from Smith Street and goes down to the detention basin that's at the bottom of the screen. I would presume that's fully passable currently, since it needs to be passable to access the detention basin. I believe I commented at the last meeting on the importance of the charm bracelet, which has been decades in development. And I've been convinced at this point that this is a pretty critical connection for the charm bracelet. Given that there's no impact on open space, there's virtually no cost related to an easement. I'm disappointed at your reluctance to provide the land trust with an easement across the lot. This location from west, east to west, east. So I'll have to think about that and how I want to address that. And I welcome any change of heart on that. So that's all my comments thus far. I would ask Jim Robbins if he has any.
Mark, could I make one comment?
Sure, Hazel.
Yeah. Looking at the map or the drawing here, I assume, and the loading of the trucks is at the rear of the building there.
It's in this area here. Yep, in the rear of the building.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder if there's a possibility. I mean, I see, if you come down here and you got a curve to go around, and all our residents are over on this side. Would it be possible to have the trucks go through and come down the other driveway? So in other words, in other words, go north where you've got that cul-de-sac kind of thing, but just go out that way and then come down that way, because the thing is, at that point, there are no residents in that whole area. So I'm thinking it might have less effect as when they're coming down here. You've got a curve here where they're going to have to slow down, and then a curve.
I recorded that decision. Okay, that's good. They sent me the recorded. Good, we'll upload that. Yeah, I got it uploaded.
Can I just interrupt? Whoever, Kristen, I'm not sure.
I don't know
what's the phone number. Okay, thank you, Hazel, for your question. And I guess, John, did you understand that through all the distraction? John, you're muted.
Sorry. I did. I think the question was, can they come up on the more eastern access point?
No, the question was whether they could leave. I'm talking about your trucks that are in there, early morning, whether they can leave, they've been loaded, and whether they can leave and going back out, the trucks, not the vans, the trucks, whether they can leave by going, I don't see an arrow in here, but okay, let's say north is in that direction.
So John,
north is left.
The trucks are currently leaving the same way they came in, right?
The trucks, the intent is for the trucks to leave the same way they came in. And the main reason for that is, and we talked about a shift change, for the employees, right? So a lot of the trucks are overnight, as we discussed. So the main goal here is site safety and circulation.
Right.
We really want to try to keep the trucks in their own route so that they don't interfere with, the employees coming and going. So having them come and go from this access point here, they never intermingle with the employee parking lot. And if they came out this more eastern point here, they would.
Yeah, but not much, because when you think about it, if your employees are coming in, they're parking in this lot down over here. And there really isn't any interaction. I mean, the employees can come in. I mean, they could come in a different way. I mean, you know, there are ways to do that, but I just think it might be less, you know, the headlights and things bothering people because it's the middle of the night if they're coming out the other direction.
So you're saying have them come in the western route here,
Yeah.
come in, and then they leave going out this way.
Well, just straight across, so you don't need them to stop here. I don't see why they can't just go right through and come back out again and go out the other way. Then they don't even have to turn around.
What might be helpful is that when we show the dimensions of the sound attenuation and the light attenuation, the locations and where we're going to strategically place that. So we'll take a look at that so that maybe we could provide some comfort to the board.
I think it's something you ought to consider because.
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually, to go a little further than that, I think it would be preferable if they came up I guess that's the east side of the lot, the way this is oriented.
The east is up top of the page.
Yeah. So, if they came in that way and your employees use the other entrance through 2400 Computer Drive, I'm not sure how 2400 would feel about that, but then that turn into the loading docks would be, not only would you have sound barriers put up, but you'd have all the van and that whole parking lot providing additional. Again, I'm not sure it's feasible, given the location of the parking lots, to segregate the trucks from the cars any other way than you have. But I think Hazel raises an interesting point.
Yeah, if you just look at the traffic flow and give us some alternatives.
Yeah, it makes sense what Hazel's saying because the trucks are leaving and the employees would be coming in, so it's not like they're overlapping right there.
We'll look into it further. I still go back to, it's really important to separate that traffic, whether or not the cars are coming in and the trucks are leaving. They're still, the cars are coming in making a left and the trucks are leaving in the same direction. It's all, they're all coming out of that one spot there. It's really the preference to have them separated to the extent we can. I think we need to focus on, the betterments here. There are 250 plus trucks operating on site now. We're going to have 35 truck trips. We're doubling the distance essentially from where they are now, and putting up sound walls. But we can take a look at that circulation.
I mean, this is not the point of balancing betterments versus the way things are. This is the point of this, is to make this facility work for everybody, including the community and the applicant. So, we're not trading betterments. We're just trying to come up with a plan which is really works for everybody and is the less disruptive on everybody.
Yeah, I think you've already shown that you're willing to address our issues and to at least look at some of the things we bring up. And I think that adjusting the traffic flow, while it may not be feasible, I think you should look at it and give us maybe give us some alternatives to where the trucks come in and where the employees come in, so that we can improve this site as best as possible. So I like Hazel's point. Jim, I was going to turn it over to you for any questions. Do you have anything? Jim Robbins? Are you muted?
Yes, thank you. I did have a couple things. Really quickly regarding the lighting, your slide said 25-foot light placements there. Our town standard is 20 feet full cutoff, and the 20 feet includes the base of the light. So from ground level to top of light, 20 feet. We can talk about that if you want an idea of what that means. The second thing is, it was mentioned by Bob during the presentation about the municipal services impact study, that your applicant would contribute to that study. I think I want the board to consider having the applicant do the study after site plan approval, so that the applicant is not held up by the study, but very similar to what was done at Otis Street, that the applicant would conduct the study post-approval. And I'd like to talk to you about that further, Bob, and whoever else you want to be involved in that discussion.
I don't have Jim through the chair, if that's okay. I think that we should talk about the scope. You know, in some respects, it may be able to be accomplished quicker if we do it that way. But I think it's critical that we work on the scope of that review.
Agreed. And I would like to have the fire department and the economic development director involved in that discussion, and anyone that they feel appropriate as well, together with us talking about who a consultant would be, and then bring that back to the planning board.
No objection.
Thank you.
Nothing else? Okay. Is there any other town departments that wanted to comment? No, if Lisa's on. I see Jason. Anyone? Okay. Since this is a public hearing, we will take questions from the public. I would ask you to please use the raise hand feature so that I can acknowledge you. And just a reminder that you know, if your point has already been made, you know, again, we don't necessarily want you not to speak, but you know, if you feel like your point's already been addressed, in the interest of time, you know, please try not to be redundant. Joe Breen, I see your hand up first. Joseph, you just have to unmute yourself. We can't unmute you.
Thank you. I wondered if the applicant could please go over the...
Joseph, I'm sorry. Just for the record, I will ask everybody to state their name and address. Just we're required to do that.
Joseph Breen, 14 Smith Street in Westborough.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mark. I wondered if the applicant could please review the proposed sound absorption barrier, and go over the height, the length, and where it's located, and any other details of that, please.
Well, this is through the chair.
Yes, Bob, go ahead.
Okay. At a minimum, it will be along the loading docks. I don't know, John, if you could put your cursor there and show on this plan, then it would probably wrap right through to that point. Based upon what we've heard, in other areas, we intend to use perhaps earthen berms along perimeters of parking lots that would have an effect, because the earth at that location, other than the loading docks, would probably be a very, very effective sound attenuating device. And the height down there where you have vans is certainly not the same height or location that you would have at the loading docks. Based upon the conversation over the last 15 minutes or so, I think we're going to be looking at potential other locations if in fact we determine that the site circulation cannot be altered, that we would look at placing it in strategic locations on the radius of the curb and perhaps along that back portion, so that it provides both sound and light attenuation beyond what exists under this plan for the abutting property owners. But I mean, the height would be, I don't know, this is probably about 10 to 12 feet, John? I wouldn't.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we're consulting with a sound consultant to determine that height and material of the sound wall. You know, there's various different types of materials, not just, you know, like the images we showed looked like wood, but they're actually a, you know, kind of specialized composite system that is more acoustical in nature. And as Bob just mentioned, you know, I think based on the discussions tonight, we were originally looking at, you know, something in this area here, but we're most likely going to be, adding in maybe some overlap and something else down in this area here to, to accommodate any lights that may be shining as they're driving down the street here. And also to, mitigate any noise from the dumpster operations, which would be here as well.
So Joseph, I think the short answer is we're not sure yet, and we'll I guess stay tuned for that. But if you have comments or suggestions about that, please speak up.
Yes, if you could potentially pursue a precast concrete sound wall of, somewhere in the order of like a 15-foot height, I think would be beneficial to absorb, obviously, the truck traffic lights, but also the noise of the trucks that are going to be a 7-day-a-week operation year-round would be helpful in your sound study. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Deborah Ziegler, I see your hand up, and just a reminder, state your name and address, please.
Hi, thank you. Deborah Ziegler, 23 Smith Street. I have a couple, hopefully quick questions. The first one that was brought up last meeting but wasn't answered. Where the trucks currently are significantly lower than where you're proposing the trucks to be now. So can you please speak to what the elevation difference is? Because they are really low below the tree line, and when you move them up to that site for loading and unloading, it's really, really high above the houses.
Okay, John,
Yeah.
Are you going to address this?
Yeah, I can address that. I'm pulling up our site plan here to address that here. Just looking at, so the houses are, trying to get the existing grades down here. So elevation 400 roughly here, and these are at about 415, 420. So the existing trucks are about 15 feet, 20 feet above, the houses on Smith Street. And our loading dock is going to be, elevation 430, 433. So we're raising that up, 10 to 15 feet. But also obviously we've talked a lot tonight in detail about the acoustical sound wall that is going to mitigate those effects.
If you're higher up, everything will be over their roof. So what the hell is she talking about, right?
Okay.
It's gonna be like over there.
Okay, thank you for the comments. If you could please, Deborah, do you have something else you wanted to say?
So, yeah, two more quick things. One, why are we waiting decades for any kind of green heating, solar, electric initiatives? That seems almost, I don't know, insincere that you're going to be a green building and have electric vehicles and you're not even thinking about it for 10 years. What is the thinking on that?
I'm not sure where that 10 years came from.
The word was decades. Someone spoke the word decades.
That was me, and I was referencing, if you looked in the media, the applicant here has talked about their long-term plan. There was no inference or no intent to imply that was decades here before sustainable design and activities are going to be implemented on this site. That was just referencing the long-term objectives of the applicant as articulated in the press. But that's not that was not intended to be site specific.
Yeah, so this is John Ziegler, Debbie's husband, same 23 Smith Street, but it almost seems totally counterproductive. If you put a heating system that's natural gas, typically the lifespan of that is 20 years. So why would you waste the money to put that heating system in if you're just going to replace it? Well, it sounds like 20 years later you'd be replacing it with solar panels and green technology. So why wouldn't you just do it now? Amazon supposedly says this green company. Why would you wait? Most of the houses in Smith Street, including ours, is fully solar powered. I don't use any heat other than that comes off of my solar electricity. I would hopefully that Amazon would be able to do the same thing.
Bob, do you want to address that? Anyone?
I think we'll look at it. We'll try to comment at the next meeting.
Okay.
I don't know where to begin on that.
Deborah or John, did you have anything else?
Yeah, so first I just want to say thank you very much to Hazel for reminding the applicant that their priority and perfection of efficient design isn't the first priority, but we all want to be good neighbors. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront. That's really important to remember, that our needs are pretty important as well, since we're here first. The second thing, or the last thing, is the beginning of the meeting, I just jumped on and heard some sound complaints at the Silver Hollow construction site. And there was a suggestion that you get a police detail to make sure that this doesn't bother the abutters. And I'm wondering if you'll be able to provide us the same support should we have complaints of noise and other nuisances if this goes forward.
So Deborah, as we move this forward, there will be hours of operation set for construction.
I'm not talking about only construction, Mark. I'm talking about the fact that they are suggesting that they're going, they keep saying off peak. Well, my off peak is when I go to sleep. So they're going to conduct business during my off peak hours as well. So I'm not only talking about construction, I'm talking about when they do business and they bother us.
Okay. So one of the things they're offering is after 18 months to reassess the traffic and peak traffic and the traffic impacts of this project. So at that point, we would have the ability to address any further mitigation or address changes to the project that would.
So we're supposed to be patiently annoyed and disrupted for 18 months? Is that the suggestion? Until we act
no,
again?
I think the hope is that we're going to come out of this process with a solution that will mitigate any of the disruption to the abutters on Smith Street. And I think everybody on the planning board is working towards that solution. We're waiting for the applicant to give us the location and design of those sound barriers, and I'm hopeful that will go a long way towards stopping this disruption. But I recognize it's going to be a disruption during construction, and I just want to make sure that the outcome of this is the best we can possibly get to.
I do appreciate all your efforts on behalf. I do appreciate all those considerations. I'm just really nervous about the plan and the reality of the plan. That's all. Thank you.
So I do have one further question, and it really has to do with the traffic. So if we could go back to that one graph that has all the different peaks and what have you. What I really don't understand is that big peak in the morning and the big peak in the evening. At some point, I understand there's van drivers that have to drive vans, but where are those van drivers coming from? And when do they leave? I would assume there had to be a spike after they come and before they leave, or I mean the other way around. So when do the van drivers arrive at the facility?
That's all built into this peak here. So this 9 o'clock to 10 to 11 o'clock is the coming and the going. Same within the afternoon. So they come from wherever they live. They arrive around 9 o'clock. They get in their vans, they load up, they go out for the day by 11. And then in the afternoon or evening, they come back, they park their vans, and then they go home. And that all happens in these off-peak hours.
So what does each doctor represent in terms of time?
I didn't hear the question clearly.
There's something like 800 vans, right?
There's 800 plus van parking spaces.
Right.
But on a normal,
parking for 400 employees. So how does that work?
Because on a normal day, on a normal operations, a lot of the van drivers park in the empty van spaces. So there's not 800 plus vans operating out of this facility every day.
There's 344 vans.
Correct.
That are going to be loaded, parked here and loaded here. And John's correct. Those peaks are combined inbound and outbound trips. A van driver comes in, parks his or her vehicle, gets in a van. If it hasn't been already loaded, preloaded for that first wave, they get in their van and they get in the queue and they get loaded and they leave the site in that first peak. And then when they come back, that's what you see in the off peak of the evening commute.
Right. The reason why I ask is, and you keep saying normal operations. So what happens around Christmas time? Can we see what the graph would be at Christmas? I ask this because I have friends that live outside of just nearby the Nashville Amazon facility. And they said during Christmas time, that peak that you show here goes from basically 9 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock at night, where it's nonstop traffic leaving the facility in van traffic. So can you talk about normal Christmas time activities? So Thanksgiving through, January 1st.
We will address that. Clearly, peak season is more. That's what you find at a typical retail plaza or shopping plaza or anywhere else, and it's going to be no different here. How those are programmed into the operational plan, we will get you that answer, and we'll come up with that information for you for next time.
Right.
Yeah, so Doug, just a reminder, this isn't zoned for retail or shopping. This is...
No, I'm making the analysis, Mark, that peak season is everywhere, right? There's shopping peaks, there's retail peaks, and this is a retail type oriented facility. It's going to have its peaks. It's definitely going to be more traffic. There's no question about it.
But maybe we should be talking about your peak traffic rather than your normal operation traffic.
Yeah, so John, I think they're going to come back to us at the next meeting with some analysis of the peak seasonal traffic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see if there's any other questions. Thank you for commenting, John and Deborah.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment before you move on based on those questions? I just want the Zieglers to understand that when we were designing and working on this and responding to the inquiries, our guiding principle has always been that the intensity of the operations today versus the intensity of the operations of the proposed project, our objective and our marching orders from the applicant as well as the user have been to make sure that we mitigate those impacts so that the proposed operation is better than what exists there today. And I think that a couple of things to bear in mind, that the intensity of the operation today with the NFI trucking terminal operations, as well as the fact that the current operation could be expanded significantly, and maybe if the pandemic ends and the buildings become more fully occupied, that's what's been guiding us to look at and say, how can we make this a better operation vis-a-vis what exists here today? So,
right.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Bob. But I think there's room for all of us to at least explore ways to improve upon what you've presented. So that's what we're trying to do, and again, come up with an outcome that will be the best possible. I'm not saying you haven't done a really good job with this, and at least giving me responses to the issues that came up last time. But I think everybody's trying to come up with the best possible design for this, and that's really we certainly appreciate your efforts to do that.
So Robert, I absolutely appreciate it, and the only thing I'd say is I've been here for 23 years now on Smith Street, and for the first 15 years of that, there was no NPI truck stop there. Okay, it was just an office park. you know, 9 to 5, people coming and going, and they were wonderful neighbors, absolutely wonderful neighbors. 5-7 years ago, I don't know how that trucking area got approved to do what it did. None of the neighbors were notified by it. Obviously, it's not your issue, Bob, or Robert, but that's where we're coming from where it was originally when we first moved in. But it was just an office park, right? It wasn't. Right.
And I would reiterate that we will continue to try to address your questions and the board's concerns to the best of our ability.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, let's see if anyone else from the public has any comments. I don't see anyone's hands raised. Although,
Mark,
yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
there's a gentleman, Kenneth Kincaid, that has sent some emails to the planning email inbox, but I believe he's on the call, so I'm not sure if he wants to instead verbally voice any of his concerns. I don't have his address on the emails that he sent.
Yeah, Ken is, I think, on the phone number and probably can't raise his hand. So Ken, do you have any questions? And you would have to unmute yourself. We can't unmute you.
Yes, this is Ken.
Go ahead, Ken.
I'm at 20 Smith Street, directly behind the building. I had one thing I'd like to say. I appreciate your mitigation factor for the panels. I'd heard they're not an inexpensive item to put up. If we had something much like they have on the highways, that'd be appreciated. Also, I'm concerned about possibly replacing or at least adding in some evergreen trees behind the panels, because the deciduous trees there now are basically bare from September to April. And we'd be looking at this humongous factory every day, and the lights that are going to be coming from the trucks. So I appreciate if they'd add some of that as a mitigation factor. My question about the traffic for the workers was already answered, and they're going to look into that. And again, my other question was about the solar panels. Why can't we put solar panels up there right now? Because your effect with all your electric cars is going to affect the electric grid in some way. So basically, those, a couple of my questions were answered, but I just wanted to add, the fact about maybe planting some more trees to go along with the mitigation panels along the whole road that Ms. Norse mentioned, along that curve where the trucks come in. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. Kristen, was there any other comments by email or anything else from the public?
No, that was it.
All right. So Jim Robbins, I think we're ready to continue this to May 3rd. Is that right? Or are we going to be ready next week?
Let me ask the applicant, Bob, do you feel that you'll have time between now and next Tuesday to make progress on these, or do you want to continue to the following meeting? You need to unmute.
But I suggest that we continue to the 4th. And if we, at the end of this week, if we feel that we're not in a position, I'll send you a letter asking you to push it on.
Sounds good. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for site plan review application at 4400 Computer Drive to May 4th at 6:30 p.m.
I second that.
Okay, I heard a second from Peter. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call. Peter Bouchard.
Yes.
Tim Taylor.
Yes, Mark.
Hazel Nurse.
Yes.
Jim Ball.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 to continue. Thank you all for attendance. We will move on to our next agenda item.
Thank you for your time and consideration, and everyone please stay healthy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Our next agenda item is review and approval of the Teagan Bond Engineering peer review, also at 4400 Computer Drive. Jim Robbins, again, I'll turn to you for a summary for the board.
Sure. As you know, currently we have several site plan reviews under review by the engineering department. The engineering department asked that we hire a peer reviewer to do this site plan. because they didn't have the capacity to conduct this as well as the others that they're doing. So our town engineer, Lisa Lane, reached out to several applicants, not just wondering if they can do the work, meaning our scope of review criteria, but also how quickly they can perform the review. Ty and Bond, which is a large firm, which we've worked with before. As a matter of fact, they were an applicant to the master plan update RFP. I know them well. They're a good firm. Lisa highly respects them. She recommends that we accept their scope of services. The applicant, Atlantic Management, has already seen it and signed it. You have a vote in front of you, a proposed motion, I should say, for the entire amount of work. They expect to have a preliminary review for our next meeting, which is quite quick. They're a large firm, so I think they'll do a good job. We need your vote, though, to approve.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay, does somebody want to make a motion on that? I don't have the motion in front of me.
I can do that, Mark, if you want.
Oh, thanks.
I move that the planning board approve a scope of services and contract with Ty and Bond of Westfield, Massachusetts for an amount not to exceed $9,500 to perform engineering peer review services for the site plans for 4400 Computer Drive as outlined in a letter and scope of services dated revised April 15th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, Hazel seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call. Hazel Nurse,
Yes, to approve.
Jim Ball,
Yes, Mark.
Tim Kaler,
Yes, Mark.
Peter.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 to approve. Next item on the agenda is, let's see, review and approval of the Mann and Associates traffic peer review. This is for 1400 West Park Drive, which is a new Mass General project that we've received an application for. I'll let Jim summarize this as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you're very familiar with McMahon and Associates, they've done many peer reviews for us in the past. This is a follow-up to the study that was done for West Park Drive Extension, which you approved a couple meetings ago. This would be for traffic on that side of town that would exit using the new West Park Drive Extension and exiting onto Flanders Road, eventually down to East Main or heading east towards Southborough, towards Route 85. McMahon and Associates is very familiar with the area as they did the study for West Park Drive. They also did the peer review for the Olympus Corp. So they have all of the background information already prepared for this study. They should have a quick turnaround. I recommend that you approve it. I think the contract is for $5,100.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay, Jim, do you have that motion, or I can pull it up again?
I have it, Mark.
Oh, great. Thanks.
I move that the planning board approve a scope of services and contract with McMahon Associates of Taunton, Massachusetts for an amount not to exceed $5,100 to perform traffic engineering peer review services for the site plans for 1400 West Park Drive as outlined in a letter and scope of services dated revised April 19th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, Hazel seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call again. Jim Ball,
Yes.
Peter Bouchard,
Yes.
Tim Kaler,
Yes, Mark.
Hazel,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0. The next item on the agenda was the endorsement of the definitive subdivision plan for the ridings, but they're not ready for this meeting. Jim, do we need to continue this at all, or we're just going to table this for the next meeting?
No, they actually submitted the Mylars today, but I require a letter from the town engineer to state that all of the engineering changes that were required by the approval have in fact been entered onto the plans. I have their verbal okay, but we're waiting for the letter. The final details were just worked out on Monday, so you'll get that for the next meeting.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next agenda. First of all, any questions on that about the writings? Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a master plan update and a vote to approve the amendment to the VHB master plan contract and public survey number 2. We have a master plan meeting scheduled for Thursday. I hope you'll all be able to attend. And Jim, I'll let you summarize this for the board.
Yes, thank you very much. So as most of you know, because you attend the Master Plan Advisory Committee meetings, the VHB contract was to deliver the final plan in May. However, as you know, we've made several additional requests of VHB, all of which they're able to absorb within the contract amount that was originally approved. However, it extends the date of the contract to June 30th. I think it's an appropriate extension. It has allowed us to do our second survey, which I'd ask anybody that's watching at home to please go to the town's website, go to the master plan link on the left side of the homepage for the town's website and take the survey. It is a long survey. And if you register to be a participant in the master plan survey, you can take it as you please, which means you could take 3 or 4 pages of the survey and then save it and come back. If you don't register, you can still take the survey, but you'll have to complete it in one setting. And it is quite a long survey. So I either recommend that you register and allow yourself plenty of time to take it, or if you're interested in only a couple sections of the survey, because the survey is divided into the 9 areas of concentration, for example, housing or economic development or transportation, for example, you can take each one of those subsections if you're only interested in 1 or 2, and then just go to the very end of the survey and click the submit button. If you don't do that, your answers won't be counted. And if you leave the site, your answers won't still be there when you return. So there's 2 ways to do the the survey, and it's fully explained when you go to the survey. The instructions are there. So please do that. As far as the update is concerned, this again is only an extension of the contract. The items in the scope have not been changed. The dollar amount has not been changed. The town manager has the contract right now and will endorse it once the board approves.
We don't have a meeting this Thursday night, do we? Isn't it been moved till May?
No, our next meeting is this Thursday. It's a meeting of the advisory committee subcommittee.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's not the public hearing.
Any questions on the contract revision for VHB? Okay, do we have a draft motion on this, Jim?
You do.
I have that, Mark.
You do? Great.
I move the planning board approve an amendment dated April 1st, 2021 to the contract with VHB, contract number 14779.00 for completion of the agreement for professional service between Vanessa Hagen, Brussland, Inc. and the town of Westborough for the Westborough Master Plan. This amendment extends the date for completion of contract services to June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call. Tim Kaler,
Yes, Mark.
Hazel Nurse,
Yes, to approve.
Peter Bouchard,
Yes.
Jim Ball.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 to approve. Jim Robbins, I don't see anything else on the agenda. Do you have any other business that we need to?
I have no additional business. I just remind the board that next week's agenda will be very busy. We have the continuation of rugged trails, and hopefully we're going to be near an approval time on that preliminary plan. They will then move to the definitive. We also have the continuation of 4400 Computer Drive site plan, and we will have the opening public hearing for 1400 West Park Drive, UMass Brigham's Healthcare Facility. So it will be a full agenda as well.
Well, Jim, did they get state approval for the Mass General facility, or is that still pending? Or,
I do not know the answer, and I know Chris Egan was on this call. I'm not sure if he's still on this call. We might be able to answer that.
Well, we can find out next week when they come in. It's not something I need an answer to right now.
Okay, I don't see Chris. Oh, Mark Varro is here. Mark could maybe answer that.
It's still pending.
Okay. Well, we'll keep our
Thank you,
fingers
Mark.
crossed. Okay. Any questions from the board before we adjourn? Anything else? All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Tim Kaler,
Yes.
Hazel Nurse,
Yes, to approve.
Peter Bouchard,
Yes, to approve.
Jim Ball.
Yes, Mark.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. That's 5-0 to adjourn. Thank you guys for a good meeting. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care,
Very good
everybody.
job, Mark. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.